Okay, so I've got this space set up with some basic materials and lighting, and I've saved a render just so you can see what that looks like on reasonable quality. And now I want to put some more elements in there before I go much further. So I consider this basically just a setup to test my render settings, or to make sure that I've got some basic render settings that work, so that I can then go ahead and put in my design and know that when I'm ready I can render that fairly well before I go in and put in all my final render settings. So just want to go over quickly some of the other modelling options you have and how you can assign materials to the different sorts of objects you make. And so I'll begin with an object I make with model in place. And so, do you remember which category to use here? Furniture's okay. So it's tempting to use furniture, yeah, but casework's probably better most of the time. So furniture's good for families or for furniture that isn't fixed. So things like chairs and sometimes tables and other things that aren't built into your design, because essentially the way Revit treats them is to not show them being cut in a section. So it's just a difference in the graphics setup. So anything that's set to furniture won't show up in those section views as though it's being cut. It'll show up as though it's in elevation, even if the section line's going right through it. And that makes sense. For things like chairs, you don't want to see a chair like the one we're sitting on cut through in a section with heavy lines. So if it's built-in furniture, here I'm going to make a reception desk, so I want that to show as built-in furniture, and casework is, like you're saying, the one for that. So I'll use casework, and I'll call it what it is, reception desk. Giving meaningful names will just help you to know what these things are. And okay, so I want to show you Revolve and Sweep, and if we have time I'll do Blend as well, but Revolve and Sweep are probably more important. And before I do though, I just want to quickly go over Extrusion just one more time. This time I'm going to make a reference plane, and I'm going to put that down in this area here. So I want a gap between my wall and my reception desk of 1 metre. Now I'm going to press escape a couple of times and select that reference plane and give it a name. So this is a step that you might not do every time you make a reference plane, but when you're making things in different planes it will help you a lot. So reception profile. Okay, so notice how when you give it a name in properties, you'll see the name come up in the view as well, only when you select it. So then, if I go to the section view down here, the wall that I made next to it is in the way, but otherwise I'll be able to see what's on that plane. If we just go back into the plan view, so that section view there is looking up towards this plane here. So I'm going to open that up, and now I want to draw on the plane. So back to create, I'm going to go to extrusion, and when you do that in a section view it'll bring up this dialog box, and you might have seen this come up when you go to make things in with model in place. Whenever you work in a section it'll give you this option, and it's because when you're working on a floor plan it knows that you want to extrude from the ground or from the plane that you're working on and take it straight up. But here, because I'm looking from the side or working side on, I need to choose the plane that I'm drawing in. There isn't one set up for me automatically, so I can either pick a plane or I can go to the name option there and then choose any of the planes there. So I can choose grids as well, or different levels, or the reference plane I've just named. So you can use any reference plane, but you need to name them. Once you give them a name, you can just choose them from the list. Click OK. And then I want to simply make the basically the profile for this thing that I'm, basically it's the top of my reception desk. And so I'll draw with a rectangle to begin with, just very roughly where I want that to be. Now, well, I'll ask you, how high do you think a reception desk should be? Yeah, probably a bit higher, yeah. Yeah, so...
Oh, you mean like...
Yeah.
Oh, okay, like to make the wall big.
Yeah, I mean, the counters can be different heights. You can have lower ones, but 900 normally, or even up to 1200, depending. So there isn't a hard and fast rule. People do have their own ideas about this, and I worked with a hospitality designer who'd done a lot of the well-known pubs and bars in Sydney. Worked on the Ivy and places like that, and was adamant that there was a magic number he'd come up with. I think it was like 1,040. He thought was like the perfect height for people to gather around bars, and that's quite unusual. They're not normally that high, but it did work pretty well. So yeah, that's for a bar. For a reception, you might make it a bit lower. But yeah, let's go with 104 just to see. I was going to make it 900, but we'll do this. Okay, so then I'll just make the depth a bit less. So maybe don't want it so deep. I know, so I want it a bit deeper than that. And then I'll just set a depth down from there. Okay, so that's just a rectangle. But the reason I need to make this from the side is that I want to have rounded corners. So if you haven't used this tool, it's really useful. In the draw panel, you have the fillet arc option. So just like AutoCAD, you can put a curve between lines. It's just that it's not an editing tool in Revit. It's a drawing tool. So in AutoCAD, it's in Modify, it's an editing tool, but again in Revit, it's considered a drawing tool because you're making a new curve. So once you choose fillet arc, you just need to choose two lines, just like fillet in AutoCAD, and then place the curve, and then you can change the radius afterwards. So if you've been wondering how to do that, yeah, it's a bit different to AutoCAD, but essentially lets you do the same thing. And you'll see there is a way to set all of the radiuses at once, but I'll just do it this way so you get used to it. And so that's the shape I want. And now I will, well, I'll just finish that just to see how it'll turn out without me changing any other settings. If I go back to the plan view, then you can see it's in line with that plane. I actually drew it in line with the wrong wall because I stupidly was looking at this wall here, which is the one that's in the gap there, but I should have been looking at this wall. Not a problem. Go back to my section view, and to see that other wall that I actually wanted to be drawing against, I can just go to wireframe. So I'm going to use the move tool to bring that across, so I can just pick it up with a base point and then take it straight across in a straight line, so the height doesn't change. Okay, so I'll move that. Oh, no, that's okay. So really what I wanted to show you is that it will sit exactly on that plane. Let me just move it over a little bit again. So the height there, if I select it, in properties comes up as extrusion end, and then the start is 0, so that means it's starting on this plane, which we've set as the drawing plane, and then the end is 250 from there. So if I stretch that to come out, it'll increase that end value. So I can just bring that across by eye or type in a number. So I'll make that 2500. So I'll finish the model and then show you, if we go into a 3D view, you can see there it is over there on the right. And so maybe I'll bring that back a little bit. And actually I'll show you an interesting thing here. When you use edit in place, also when you use model in place, if I move that now, I can move it, but that means that relative to the plane I made it on, it's in a different position. So if I go back to edit in place, notice how it's changed. It's gotten a bit confused. So a better way of doing that, model in place really is designed to work in a fixed location. So it's better to select it, then go to edit in place, and then move it. So I can either, now notice here it's locked to that reference plane, which is a good thing. It means I can use the reference plane if I want to move it up and down, or I can move it left and right, and then it'll be easier to manage. So maybe I want it to be in line with that pillar, with that column. And so the other thing I want to show you then is to keep modelling more in that family. I might go back to Create, Extrusion, and then model in a rectangle now, this time in Plan View. Tick to finish, and I'll show you if we go into the perspective view there, that one's obviously coming up from the ground, and I can type in a height here. What was it? No, that's too high, 800. It must be slightly less. Thought I'd made a round number. There we go. And have that join this one. But really what I wanted to show you there is that it's all one family. So this is another area where people get into trouble with model in place. The other option would have been to go back to here and go to model in place again. And then, set casework for the category. I'll just leave that name for now. And make a new extrusion. So just roughly. But can you see how now that's going to be a problem? If I look at my 3D view here so we can see all of those things. Now I can easily make that leg there go to the right place and be the right size. But notice how it's a separate thing. Okay, so this one, the desktop and the leg there, they're one family, and this box is another family. And it's because I went to model in place to make my new extrusion instead of selecting the original family and going to edit in place. So it's a simple thing to miss, but it will create huge problems. I've seen people, especially when they get into third year, who haven't thought about this, and then they'll go ahead and make some really complex families that have hundreds of elements. But they'll do the wrong thing and copy them like this. So if I copy here without going to edit in place first, what I've done is copied the whole family. And then every time I need to make a change, I need to select the individual object, go to edit in place, and say I just want to change the material. I've got to then select the solid, and over here change the material. And that's what I'm going to do next, looking at the materials. So I can set a different material there. Let's just set a wood or something. But now if I want to change the other leg over there to the same material, I've got to finish this one, then select this, edit in place, select that object, and change it to the same material. Okay, so it takes a lot longer than it should if you just set it up the right way. So again, the better way to do it would be to select that, go to edit in place, go back into plan, and either make a new solid or simply copy the one I've already made. But the point is I'm doing all of this in edit in place, not by going to model in place to make a new one. So I'll just copy this down.
So it means you're making your buildings one piece of furniture rather than a whole building of furniture together.
That's right, exactly. That's it. This is how you control the grouping of them. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right. So that's what you should be thinking about, the way you're managing it and controlling how things are grouped together. And logically, this is all one reception desk, so I want it to be all one part or one piece. So now I can select it, and say I want to put a cupboard underneath. Again, instead of going to model in place, I'll just go back to edit in place. Right, so so good chance then to look at sweep as well. So with the cupboards, I might want some door handles as well, so I'll show you how to do that. I'll just put an extrusion there for a cupboard door, and so I just want to get an idea of that distance first. So it's 2180, and okay, so let's say, yeah, I'll make big doors, so I'll do 700. That'll work. Okay, so I'm just going to make a box here. That I'll make 700 long, and the depth doesn't really matter because we're not going to see the back of it, but 30. In real life it might be a bit less than that, but that's close enough. And what I might do to save time is just copy that. You can have more than one shape in an extrusion. So there, what do we have, 80 mil, so I'm going to have two gaps, so 40 mil between them. 30, okay, 5 mil off. Okay, so I'll just move that down. And copy again. 740. And so I do want to have a bit of a gap at the top and the bottom, so I'll just move that up. Let's just make it all even. So 20 mil. Okay, so now I should have 20 mil between each of those. And anyhow, if you're not sure how I did that before long, it'll be easy for you to work out spacings between things. So that should give me pretty good door. Sorry, wrong view. Again, just using extrusion coming up from the ground. But which view did I do it in? Level 1. So let's have a look at the section. I think my heights have gone. Oh no, I just must have been looking at the wrong side. Anyhow, I'll stretch that up. So really what I'll show you here, if I put a door handle onto that, it will be this shape. Right, so I can't do that by just extruding something up from the ground. So I'll do it in this section view again. And well, we've got a plane set up, and I'll just use that as well. So just to give you an idea, when I go to sweep, then it's like extrusion, but you've got two things to draw. You've got to make a path and then a shape that you're going to put on that path. So I'll go to, usually you've got to make the path first, so here I'll go to sketch path, and then I'll just choose that same plane reference profile, reception profile. Click OK, and then the door should be on this side. If I put my doors on the wrong side, I think oh no, I shouldn't have. Okay, so that should be the side with the doors on it. If it isn't, I'll flip the doors over. But I'm sure you'll see once I get the door handle drawn what it's going to look like. So just doing a rough U shape, and I'll use that fillet arc option just to make it curve at the top and the bottom. Right, now if the lines are too heavy for you, always remember you can use thin lines, which you're probably using already, or you can change the scale. So if you make the scale 1 to 50, the line weights will be lighter. 1 to 20, they'll be lighter again. So now I can see the radius there maybe is a little bit too big, so I'll make that say 30. So I've got the shape or the path that I want my door handle profile to follow, and now I need to give it a shape. So yes, I did put the doors on the wrong side. That's easy to fix. I'll do that in a minute. Okay, so there, if you go to a 3D view, you'll sometimes get a better idea how the profile interacts with the path. So notice how the profile plane is a surface that's been put in automatically. I didn't choose where that was going to go. Now you can drag it. If I drag it to the middle, then I could draw this in plan. If I leave it where it is, let's look at it in plan view to see it. But that's the plane. So which view do you think you might need to use to draw that profile? If you want to look at that plane. So hopefully you're getting used to thinking in this way. When you're designing for spaces, for interiors, in architecture as well, you're designing in 3D. So you should be thinking about how to view things in exactly an elevation, that's right. So this should be your east elevation. Okay, so there we are, so that's spot on. So now we can see that from the side. I'm going to finish the path and then go to draw my profile. Here you've got the option to select profile, or you can go to edit profile if you want to draw it. And I'm just going to draw a circle. So the profile is very easy to draw in this case, just a circle. And again, my line work's very heavy, so I might go to thin lines just for once this time to see the lines, and I'll make that, say, 15, which is probably still thicker than it would be. That will give me a 30mm wide handle. If they're plastic, they might be that size, but if they're metal, they're probably thinner. So tick to finish. Let's have a look at this all put together in 3D. So there's my path with the profile sitting on it. Now if I click tick to finish that, it'll extrude that circle along that path. Now, it's obviously sitting out from where it should be. So what I can do then is go back into plan. And, oh yeah, so I thought my plan was the other way. So my doors there can come across. So that's easy, I can just drag these across to the other side. And to line them up exactly, and so they're flush with this leg, I'll just use the align tool, pick that edge and then bring that out. And then the door handle, you can just drag by eye, should be good enough for something like this. You're not going to specify it from these drawings, so just dragging it like that. Alright, so then you can just copy that. Okay, I'm sure you can make that a bit neater, but it should look good enough in 3D. And I can see there, well actually my door handles are huge, because I wasn't thinking about the size at all, so not a problem, it's good to look at how to edit those. So back into section. Okay, so edit sweep, and then to change that path, I've got to go to sketch path, and then it won't make a new path, it'll just show you the one that's already been drawn. So we can look at that size there, so yeah, 200, that's a bit large, it'll probably be more like 100. And I can bring it back as well, and then make the radius maybe a bit less as well. Okay, so you can see there the circle's probably a bit large as well, so back into my 3D view. Okay, so that's definitely a bit fat. So we'll go back to edit sweep, and this time there's no edit profile button there, well it's greyed out. So to make it come up again, you just need to click on select profile to wake it up, and then you can go to edit profile. And I can just select that, type in a different radius, so maybe make this 8mm. Tick to finish, and then finish again, and there's a new one. So that's more like it. Now you might be thinking, well, now I've got to go and copy that to replace the other two that aren't right. So have you got an idea what might be a better way of making something like a door handle? Instead of making lots of individual door handles like I'm doing now, family, that's right. Make them into their own family, and that's the next thing. So you can make in-place families for one-offs, but if it's something like a door handle that you're going to have dozens of quite often that are all identical, you should definitely make it into a separate family file. And that's really the reason that Revit exists, for the management of interior design and architectural projects where you have lots of repeated elements. And you know, for one-offs, where you just want to model everything as you go. Okay, so yeah, so here in this case I'll copy this just like I did before, but again, for your own designs, try and think about when you can use separate families. And so I'll just quickly do one so I can show you Revolve. Okay, so there we are. So that's starting to look like the real thing. What would be missing there from the cupboard doors? Sorry? Or you could put the hinges in. That's probably a bit too much detail for 3D, but you should definitely think about it. The handles give an indication of which side they're opening from, though. But just visually, what's missing there? Is there anything? Yeah, the kickboard. Yeah, base plate, the plinth, but kickboard's normally what they call it in joinery. And it's important because if you don't have one, people will actually hurt themselves. You can really hurt your toes. Exactly. Yeah. It's there for a reason. And so I won't bore you by making me watch while I do that, but I would definitely be adding that in later. So anyhow, so I've got a section there that's looking okay, and you can see, like I did with the sides there, you can add materials just by selecting each element. And so I'll do that from scratch. I'll finish that model. So if you finish the family, you need to select it and then go to edit and place. Now notice that option isn't coming up because I'm in a perspective view. It's just one of these annoying Revit things you need to get used to. In perspective views, you don't get that option, but you can change to any other 3D view or a plan view, any other view, and you'll get that edit and place button. Then you can select the solids. So at first a lot of people think, well, why can't I just select this thing and get the materials coming up there? But you need to be thinking about it as a group of objects. So again, you need to go to edit and place, then select one of the parts of the group. So this solid I can select, and then the material comes up there. It's really easy. So I can just browse. And I've shown you the steps for making materials a few times, but I'll just repeat it just so you get used to it. So I can select a material that's already there, that's close to what I want. Right click, duplicate, and I'll call this plastic white. And then change the graphics if you want. But then when you go to the appearance, if you're going to make changes there, make sure you either duplicate or replace. So I just want to do this quickly, so I'll just duplicate and then make my change. So I just want to make it a different sort of white, more bright white. And make it more reflective. That'll do. This is actually set up as a wall paint. So there, if you want it to come up as plastic, you can go to replace and find the plastics in the appearance library there. So here we've got smooth, and that you can see there says plastic, which gives you different options. Okay, so I'll do the other materials later. So I just want to get on to Revolves and also making new families. So I'll save this file. Okay, so just to do the same thing then, but with a separate family, you can make a new family on the main menu. And this one should be a bit quicker. I'm going to use furniture, metric furniture, just so you can see the difference. So metric casework is an option there if you want it to be casework. You'll see metric casework there. So for built-in furniture, things like built-in cupboards, reception desks, shelves, things like that, built-in shelves. So again, metric furniture is the family I'll use. And I'll just do a quick revolve. So with the, this time, front elevation, sometimes with these views in the family file, you'll need to right click and go zoom to fit just to see anything. It might look like that at first. So by doing zoom to fit, you're just going to fit everything into the view so you can see what's already there. Okay, so with Revolve, I'm going to draw a basic profile. And I've got chain turned off so that it's not continuing my lines, but anyhow, it's basically just a rectangle. But then I want to put an arc onto these two corners. And that might do actually. So I'll just check the height from the ground. Yep, 400, that's okay. Okay, so with a revolve, you've got to draw a profile. So just like a sweep, you're drawing a profile, but this one won't be sent along a path, it's going to be revolved around an axis. So with a revolve, you are by default in that option to draw a profile, and then you've got to change to the option here to draw an axis. So I'll just draw the axis straight along that centre line. Tick to finish. And again, in my 3D view, it's zoomed into some blank space. I'll just right click and then zoom to fit, and then you can see the shape it's made. Okay, so quite often with revolves, you need to draw them from the side. If you draw them from plan and have them come up, well, I'll show you, they're not often as useful. So I'll just do a quick one. So if I make a revolve here using a similar kind of shape, okay, so I'll do an axis line in line with that edge there and finish it. Okay, so you can see how that's revolving up and around from the ground and won't give me the sort of shape I want. So basically this is going to be some seating, and so the profile for that needs to be drawn in a different plane. So a bit like what I showed you with the extrusions at the beginning, you need to be thinking about the different planes that you need to use to draw your profile. And so now if I want this to be a bit thicker and maybe not so wide, I can go back to my elevation view, select the revolve, edit revolve, and then just adjust that profile. Tick to finish. Look at my 3D view and see what the result is. Okay, so just like the family I made with edit in place, I can make the or make as many solids as I want as part of this family. And actually, we've got time, I can show you blends. So I'll just add a quick blend here maybe to give you an idea of what you can do with that, and that'll be the last major modelling tool. I'm just going to draw a circle on the ground, and then with blends you essentially need to draw two profiles. So I've drawn my first one, might make that a little bit smaller, and now if I go to edit top and draw a second profile, I'm just going to draw another circle. So can you guess what it's going to give me? Exactly, a tapering leg. And I've actually made legs. I used to work in a joinery when I was at uni. Worked in a joinery workshop making furniture for some pretty well-known places, and we made legs just like this for Anavu, and Bang had a similar one as well, actually. So that easy. They're much harder to make in real life. And okay, so I've got that blend there to get a tapered leg essentially, and I might give it a material, so I might make that a wood. So let's get a wood material from here. So this time I'm getting it from the library, And that will do. Now it's got no colour, so if you look at the options for that material, it's still grey over here, so I can change the colour there to see a different colour in my shaded view. If I go to realistic, we'll see the timber material. And now I can copy it. So I won't show you how to do parameters for this one again. We did that with the lights. So here I'll just mirror that a couple of times. Okay, so I've got a basic chair there. And now to manage this, we need to give it a name. So I'm going to save this as a family and give it a name that makes sense. So I'll just save it into this folder and I'll call this Round Ottoman. Load into project. And I can place a few. Maybe I'll just put them in here so we can see them in that view I've been working in. So I can see them there. Now I haven't given a material to the cushion. So if I select it and go back to another view, oh no, sorry, I always forget, 2016, they fixed this, so you can now just go to edit family from a perspective view. So you can't with in place, but these you can. So here, edit family, and then I can just select that object. Again, have a look at the thing I did on parameters with the lights, and that'll make this even easier, but it'll definitely work if I just go to here and select browse and find a fabric. Yep, so carpet's probably going to look okay, but I don't like that pattern, so I'll give it a better name. We'll call it cushion. Oops, ION. ION, there we go. And when you go to replace here, then in the appearance library you'll find in the fabric folder there a lot more you can choose from. I'm sick of brown, but yeah, let's go for blue. Yeah, now I've got yellow in there, so I'm going for, well, they're meant to work together, but that's one of the few rules that I'm not too sure about. It's the only colour that really works with yellow apart from red, but red, yellow and blue, I'm not sure. Yeah, maybe spend a bit more time on that, but for now, at least you can see it's a different material. So, so hopefully that'll give you enough to make the different things you need with different modelling tools, and then more importantly to assign materials to them, because you assign them in different ways. And don't forget, you can get the different images. Did I show you the material images folder on the P drive? Oh, good, good. Yeah. So if you're thinking about copying it, you're welcome to, but it's fairly large. It's about 100 gig, I think. So it might take you a little while. So leave yourselves, you know, half an hour, maybe an hour even, to copy that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's big. It's big. So you won't fit it on one memory stick, but if you've got a hard drive, then you should fit it on that. It's a good resource to have, but then again, search, and it is a requirement for this assignment that you do find at least one texture. So, so what's a material that you've been thinking of using for your own designs?
Like timber.
Yeah. What sort of timber?
Like
Yeah.
everything's like indoor ones. They have like ferns covered in like a weird shiny white kind of like leather material.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, see, that you could do just by changing the settings for those materials that are already in the library. Yeah. So it's only if it's got like a really definite texture. Yeah, yeah. So things that are like vinyl and laminates, you can just adjust the shininess and play with the colour and things like that, which is good because you can still get really nice materials that way.